Welcome to Breadboarding. This is a quick video on chip labels. There was a question from Greg a couple of days ago, and although I did cover chip labels a few times over the last many videos, I figured it probably was better just to produce one to summarise the situation as it currently stands at the moment. So what are chip labels? So here's the ones that I've currently got. So these are Grant Searle's original chip labels, and I'll talk a little bit about them, and you'll see that there's quite a few that have even got the logic gate layouts on there. I probably used about 2/3 of these were possible to use on the original Nanocomp project without needing to do any further work. I then created my own for the Nanocomp 6809 project and the video controller. There were some things that weren't covered, so this is a fairly extensive number here. I produced these using Inkscape, so we've got everything from 64-pin dual port RAMs, 6809E microprocessor, and we've also got PS2 keyboard controllers, all sorts of things on here. And then we've got the most recent project, the Breadboard 8088 PC, so I'm actually trying to do these a little bit more organised and with labels and things. So I'll make these available later on this week. I just need to do a bit of tidying up before I put these up on GitHub. So why would you use chip labels? Well, what I've done is this is an example of what the monochrome display adapter board that is the current active project I'm working on. And you can see here that when we've actually laid out quite a few chips on here, that if we stick these labels on here, then it just makes wiring things up a bit easier. Now, I would say is, you can see here some of the chips are actually upside down, and I must admit I haven't got around to doing some chip labels with the labels reversed, but in general it's not really a problem when you're looking at things sideways on. But this is the reason why you'd want to do it, because it just makes it far less likely that you're going to make mistakes. Although saying that, if you make a mistake in the chip label, then it can actually result in very difficult to track down problems. So Grant Searle's original chip labels are his website here, and if we just have a quick look at that. And if you want to look at, Grant's got a lot of great designs. He hasn't updated it in a while, and I did try and contact Grant a year or so ago and been unable to get in contact with him. What you can do is, if you scroll down to Home Built Micros, there's a go here for chip labels, and then you can actually download the document from here. Now again, he has said not to duplicate this, so I haven't actually made copies of these. If you want to download them, you just need to download them from here. And if we have a look at those, so these are Grant's chip labels, and you can sort of see that the logic gate is actually included the symbols and things. There's a good variety of the standard logic chips you'd need to use for microprocessor based designs. Got a lot of the main microprocessors already here. The 6809P, which is the standard 6809. I needed the E version, and you'll see down here that there's even 68,000 series and all sorts. So this was a great start. I was inspired by this, and I think Grant used Visio for this, because if we go into here, I think, yes, Visio Chip Labels, VSD. So Grant used Visio. I don't have access to Visio anymore, so what I've been doing is, for my chip layouts, I've been using a Scalable Vector Graphics program called Inkscape, which is open source. And you'll see that there's all sorts. There's connectors for the IDE controller. There's all sorts of chips and things here. One of the things I would warn people of, if you're looking at using these, what I tend to do for some of the chips, I will relabel some of the numbering on here, because a lot of the standard pin layouts in PDF documentation and the data sheets will go A1 to A8, but I find when I'm wiring things up, doing the 0 to 1 offset in my head just tends to result in mistakes. So I tend to relabel the pins here to match the particular design, and sometimes rather than going from 7 down to 0, I might go from 0 up to 7. So sometimes these labels will actually be modified to suit the particular problem. So let's have a look at Inkscape and see how you do this. So I'm not going to include a tutorial on how to use Inkscape, all I can say is that there was a certain amount of trial and error to get these to work. So you feel free to set up your own, but I would suggest that you use these as a basis, as it can take a while and a lot of printing out of wasted sheets of paper. Quite often these objects will be grouped together. So you may first of all need to select this and to do ungroup. Once you've done that, what you should then be able to do is to copy, Control C, Control V, and if we just move this back up again. So if I want to create a new chip label for a default ATF 16V8B, and if we just have a look at the datasheet for it, so this is a datasheet for our ATF 16V8B. And if we scroll down and have a look at the layout, not a great pin layout because half the pins don't actually have numbers. So this is probably I0 clock, I1 to 8, I9, which is also output enable, and then just general IO. So I will tend to do these as IO19 down to IO12. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So need to click in the text box, and you'll see that the text box here may extend a little bit below, so you can see, yes, this actually extends below. The reason why I do that is it just makes it a bit easier for editing. And so what we want to do here is, this is either clock or I0. Now you may find that you run out of space, so we'll just do I0 clock. So we are okay there. And if you put too much on the line, what you'll find is that it'll all disappear. So you need to be careful when you're doing this. So I'm just going to put in I1, I2, okay, so we've done all our inputs down there, and you can see in the middle here I do tend to put in what the chip is. So you can see it's a ATF 16V8, and it's then got the specific purpose of the PLD I've got there, so we can just get rid of that. And I think it's a V8B, I think, in this particular case. And then for these ones underneath VCC, I'm just going to do IO19 down to IO12. We may need to do this in lowercase, because one of the things, if you can't fit the stuff in, if you do things in lowercase, then it will quite often fit. And then this one down the bottom here can also be I9. Now I'll leave it as output enable here, and I'll just show you how to do the overbar characters. I have got a summary of how to do this. So what I would generally do here, the way how I tend to do it, is I go into Windows Character Map, and there is a character known as combining overline, which is Unicode 0305. And this is one of the characters, a bit like an accented character that can be added to an existing character. Select it once, copy, Control V, Control V. And quite often with the capital letters, you'll find that in fact you might need to do an extra one. W's in particular don't work very well, but this is, I think this works better than using, say, a slash character in the front. So you could use a slash character in the front, but I preferred this mechanism. And then once you've done that, all I tend to do then is to just scroll out. I'll tend to then just group that back again. And then what we can do then is make another copy of it. The issue, selecting in Inkscape, I'm not an expert on it, and it is a little bit fussy about how you do things. But the advantage of grouping them like this is it means that when you drag things, you don't end up dragging the, just part of the actual thing. And then once you've done that, then when you come to do export, so if you go to File, Export, and you'll see in the export options, there is PDF. And what I tend to do is I just export it in PDF. Replace. Now if we go back into Acrobat, you can then reopen it. And hopefully if we go down the bottom here, we'll see There we go, we've got our two new ATF 16V8B chip labels. Then when you're printing these out, the main thing you have to remember is to not to scale. So quite often by default, these will be fit quite often. You want it actual size, and I would suggest also you do it in black and white grayscale. And for my printer, I always tend to do it in best quality as well. And that way, with an inkjet printer, you get the maximum definition. The actual font size for these is actually quite small. It's only about 6 point. So that's how I do my chip labels. So I just print these out and then just use a standard glue stick just to glue these on the chips. Make sure you put them the right way around. So make sure that pin 1, I always have pin 1 at the top left here. Certainly it's worthwhile checking that the chip is the right one, because once you put a label on it, you're almost certainly going to have very strange, hard to find problems if you get the labeling wrong. But I found that with a few rules like this, it works very, very well. So just to summarize, Grant Searle's site is there, and I'll include the URLs in the description below the video. Go to the Home Built Micros and there's a click here for chip labels. You can download Inkscape and I'll include the link in the description below. Use export in PDF, print with no scaling and best quality. The Nanocomp chip labels are actually up on the GitHub website here, but be warned, if you're using these, you want to review the contents of them, because the sizes may be okay, but the contents may be specific to this project. But if you want to do it for yourself from scratch, it takes quite a while to work out how to do these. And the README for here just includes some of the hints and tips, and also the links to Grant's site, and also explains how you can do this underline. Should say you can also do this in Word. So if you wanted to do an overline on the W, you do U plus 0305 and then Alt X. It will actually do the overbar character. And this is just the entering Unicode characters. So that's another way you can do things. And again, I would generally say that you need to do this for W's, particularly quite often need 2 characters. So these versions may be a little bit old. I will update them later on this week, and hopefully you'll have the latest versions there. But these ones, if you download this Scalable Vector Graphic file, you should be able to edit it in anything that can edit Scalable Vector Graphics. Just that Inkscape was the one that I used. It's a little bit fiddly in some things, but it works good enough for me. So I hope that's of interest. And so if you want to actually have a look at some of the projects that I'm doing at the moment, there's the Breadboard 88 PC project. This is available from the homepage of Breadboarding Labs, and there is a playlist for the whole project should you want to have a look at it. So thanks for watching. If you want to see other videos about using breadboards and hints and tips, please hit subscribe. And if you found the content useful, please hit like. It just makes it available to a wider number of people. Thanks for watching.